Shavua Tov, everybody. Erev Tov, good evening. Good to have you all here. Welcome, if those of you joining us on live stream. It's been really lovely having my old friend. We've known each other for 30 years, Michael Kagan and I, and this is an extraordinary project that Michael has created for us, and he's going to give it some context, and then we'll read the play.
Shavua Tov, everybody. So I'm Michael Kagan. I'm originally from England. I've been living in Israel for more than 40 years, and I lived in Boulder for 2 years. And there's quite a number of people here I know from then, and we had a great time, 2001 to 2003. A few years ago, at the Jewish Film Festival, there was one of my films that I co-produced, was screened, called Tunnel of Hope. And Tunnel of Hope is the subject of the play that you'll hear this evening. It's about an escape that's hardly known in the history of the Shoah. How many people remember the film The Great Escape? Remember that film, The Great Escape? Anyone remember the music, right? You know, and all the great actors of the time were in it. This is The Greater Escape. And I know that sounds funny, but I actually, the more I research it, the more I realize that it was. I didn't say, actually, that my father was in the escape. My father, Zichron Livracha, died 6 years ago, and he was one of the last out of the escape. And the play is through his point of view, through his eyes. The town, the length of the tunnel, when it was completed, was over 200 meters. And the film that we made, The Tunnel of Hope, is about us finding the tunnel and then following it and then measuring its length. And in the single night, the 26th of September 1943, which was 4 days before Rosh Hashanah, over 200 Jews escaped. The Great Escape was 86 people managed to escape on that one night, prisoners of war, officers in the British and American Army, privileged as one could be in a prisoner of war camp. And their tunnel, I don't remember, was about 100 meters long. So it just gives a proportion. This is an untold story, and this is the first time, this is a world premiere, okay? And I want to tell you what this world premiere is. Seriously, I wrote it during COVID, during the lockdown. It's a project I wanted to do for some time. A lot of it is based on stories my father told me about the escape, about what it was like in that room, digging. I need to let you know that this is a reading. So this is not a full performance of I wrote a full cast performance, and then I rewrote it as a solo. And what we're doing now is a reading of a solo. So this is not a performance, this is a reading. I will be reading the stage notes, and Marc will be reading the character, the dialogue. No, it's not done. Monologue. The monologue.
Some of it's dialogue.
Some of it is a dialogue. There are a few props, but I will also read the props that you cannot see. In the actual performance, there would be screens here and here, and different things will be projected onto the screens. I will tell you what they are when the time comes. There are sound effects. The guard here asked us, will there be, sounds of shooting or anything like that? Just that he should know. And the answer is yes. There will be sounds of shooting. Do not worry. The role of the package in the middle of the room, you will understand as the play commences. The town in which the events took place is a town called Nowarodok. In Yiddish, Polish, it's now called Nowogródok. It was then in eastern Poland, and now it's in central Belarus. Dafka, today I was reading an article about the Novaratka yeshiva. There was a great yeshiva in the town. It bordered onto my grandfather's house. No Jew lives in the town anymore. There's nothing left, zero left. There is the museum of the escape that my father helped build. I'm very, very honored that you're here. I'm very, very honored that Rabbi Marc agreed to perform, not only to have it performed here, but to perform it himself. So I really am very touched by that. It is being live screened. I don't know if anybody streamed. And with that, I think we can start. Thank you. The set consists of a single room in the labor camp. At the back of the room is a window showing snowy fields. And in the distance, the dark forests. In the middle of the room is a wooden table and a couple of wooden chairs. Yidel crawls out of the shadows. He is wearing old dirty clothes, boots, and a heavy winter coat. He is in great pain. Every movement is a great effort.
Help! Help me! Please help me! Help me!
With great effort, he pulls himself up onto the table. Lying there, he places a piece of leather in his mouth. Suddenly, Yidel's body jerks, as if electrocuted, and he screams a muffled scream.
Ah!
His body relaxes for a moment, and then there's another crack and spasms again. He takes out the piece of leather and turns on his side to face the audience.
Just my luck. Can you believe it? My first escape. How unlucky can a guy get? It was the coldest winter ever. I've never felt such cold before or since. It felt like my lungs were freezing over. It was so cold that as we were making our way through the forest, I heard the trees exploding. Yes, exploding like the bombs that fell that Sunday, blowing my house to pieces and half the town with it. Can you imagine? Giant, ancient trees just exploding in half as the sap froze and expanded and... Oh. Pow! Pow! Oh, that's the only difference. No whistling. No warning. It was silent. Totally silent. And then... Pow!
Yidel swings himself around and hops off the table.
The others were ahead of me. I was last. The snow was so deep. I was only 13 and a half. I was supposed to have had my bar mitzvah that year. Instead, I was a tough kid. But the others were older and taller. The snow slowed me down. We reached a frozen river. The others crossed over one by one, no problem. Why should there have been a problem? It was so cold. Even the fish must have frozen. I was sure that the ice was so thick that we could safely have danced the horror on it. I followed the others.
Yidel demonstrates how he walked on the ice, cautiously, confidently, not stomping.
And then it happened. Without warning. Crack! For a moment I thought it was another tree splitting, and then the ground gave way. I remember seeing the others looking at me from the other side, impatient, and then I was down!
He bends his knees suddenly and looks down and then looks at the audience.
Mama kept saying, "Why did you stomp? You shouldn't have stomped. Who told you to stomp on the ice?" "Mama, I didn't stomp. It just cracked. It wasn't my fault. I was careful." I thought my feet were already so cold they wouldn't be able to feel any colder. But I was wrong. I felt the cold water as it seeped into my boots, my new boots. My new boots with woolen inner liner that Moishele gave me as a farewell gift. "Here," he said, "take them. My son won't be needing them anymore." His son was Shimon. He was my best friend. As kids, we did everything together. They hung him by his thumbs for stealing a potato. A fucking potato! You don't last long in this temperature, hanging out in the yard, especially after they threw a bucket of water over him. Bastards! The others rushed to help him. They lifted me out. They rushed to help me. They lifted me out. We continued walking, but I knew it was over. My life. "Why did you stomp? You shouldn't have stomped." "Mama, I didn't. It was just bad luck. One wrong step, one weak spot. Crack! And the life ends." We trudged through the snow for an eternity or two. My legs were like blocks of ice. I couldn't keep up. They didn't have to wait for me. I know that. Would I have waited? Would you have waited? I was dead boy walking. Step, 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 so tired I couldn't see them, I couldn't hear them, only their footprints told me that I wasn't alone. Then suddenly, out of the gloom, out of nowhere, a hut. Just as I was about to give up, lie down, go to an everlasting sleep, a hut. Salvation! I opened the door, the others were there, huddled together, trying to get warm. It felt colder than outside. They didn't look up. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they were just freezing. "Fire?" I stuttered, as if no one else had thought about such an idea. One of them, Shimi, I think, pointed to a note pinned on the wall. "You were late, couldn't wait, be back in 24 hours, don't, repeat, don't, light a fire, smoke will be seen, enemies are everywhere." Was it my fault? Being late? Was it my fault the ice broke? Were they blaming me? It was only a second. Crack! Only a second. It was the snow! Blame the snow, not me! I sat there, freezing. I didn't take off my boots. I wanted to rub my feet, bring them back to life. They were totally numb. Couldn't feel a thing, not even the numbness. I was afraid to take my boots off. I was afraid of the pain. I was afraid that I won't be able to put them back on again. And then what? Mustn't fall asleep. Mustn't fall asleep. So cold, so tired. Mustn't fall asleep. The others were huddled together. Me, a pariah. It wasn't my fault! I must have dozed off just for a second. But when I woke up, I remembered where I was. I knew what I had to do. I told the others, "I'm going back. I can't stay here any longer. If I stay here, I'll die here." No one said anything. No one tried to persuade me to stay. No one protested that to try and go back meant certain death. Even if I managed to get through the snow, how would I get back into the camp? And even if I somehow managed to get back into the camp, what then? Death? By slow starvation? Death by a German bullet? Or worse, by hanging if I get caught? But I knew what they were thinking. He should never have been allowed to escape. Too young, too weak, too unlucky. I left. I recrossed the river, the one that had betrayed me. I was so angry, but what could I do? If it would have been a person, I would have kicked him like that bastard Ukrainian guard who kicked Heinke until he almost died. He kicked him and kicked him and kicked him!
Yidel kicks wildly, mimicking the guard.
Sobaka Yevre! Sobaka Yevre! Dirty Jew! Dirty Jew! But maybe not. My feet were too cold. My strength was ebbing fast.
Crawling, the light is fading, the wind is blowing. Suddenly there's the sound of voices.
I heard a guard shouting, "Schnell, schnell!" And then I saw a group of Yiddeler, dressed in rags, moving towards the camp gate. I had to attract their attention without alerting the guards. Help! Help me! Please help me! Helfen mir! Helfen mir!
Lights fading slowly. Yidel climbs back onto the table, with his feet hanging over the side.
The returning work gang heard me. Thank God they heard me. They huddled around me, lifted me up and carried me between them. The guards never noticed. One Jew more, one Jew less. Who told you to stomp? Why did you stomp? Did any of the others stomp? Nein! Did they tell you to stomp? Nein! So why did you stomp? Those beautiful wool-lined boots that Moishala so generously gave me, they had to cut them to pieces to get them off my feet. In my half-conscious state, I heard someone, maybe Shmulik, maybe not, protest that the boy was going to die anyway, but the boots could save another's life. Fuck him! My toes were encased in blocks of ice. They were already black. My sister rubbed snow on them to warm them slowly. They were worried that the pain of thawing would kill me. My father sent for the carpenter, told him to bring his tools.
He takes a pair of wire cutters from his pocket.
My mother went hysterical, accusing even her sister Leah of wanting to kill me out of jealousy. Her 2 sons had been killed in the first action. My father demanded they give me some of the fire water they brewed behind the carpenter's workshop. My mother said that I was too young for that. My aunt carefully poured it down my throat. Somebody put this piece of leather into my mouth. The others held me down. Click, click, click.
He slowly takes off his boots, revealing feet with no toes. The room is unchanged, except that the view from the window shows a snowless field with a forest in the background. In the middle of the room is a cloth bag made of sewn blankets. Yidel is sitting on the table. His feet are wrapped in dirty, bloody bandages. He is picking at invisible things in the fabric and throwing them away.
Don't scratch. Don't scratch. It's so itchy. There are lice and bugs everywhere. How do they find their way into the wounds, all wanting to eat me alive? I'm a living insectarium. The only way to keep them away is to soak these bandages in kerosene. But then it stinks. But who cares? We all stink.
Yidel takes a bowl and spoon and hungrily scoops up the invisible contents.
We're all starving, yet everyone is willing to share a bit of their food with me. I'm not working, so I'm not getting any food rations. I'm living off the goodwill of others. I can see the hesitation in their eyes. The desire to live is so strong, so basic, so primal. Nevertheless, they share their morsels with me. When we lose our ability to overcome this impulse, we lose our humanity. Only Nechama, my beautiful sister Nechama, doesn't share her measly portions with me. Mum and Dad have forbidden her. They say that she needs every bit she can get, otherwise her growth will be stunted and she won't be able to have children when she grows up. Poor Nechama. Oy, poor Nechama. If it was up to her, she would give me all of her food. I think that if she could, she would also give me her toes. I often think about the age-old question of what differentiates humans from animals. We so easily say that these Germans, these Ukrainians, these Latvians, that all these bastards are acting like animals, like they're subhumans, Untermenschen, you know what I mean? But I disagree. I've watched animals. Animals do not do to other animals what these humans are doing to us. No animal hangs another. No animal beats another to within inches of its life, starves another, imprisons another, tortures another, machine guns thousands of other animals just because they're slightly different. Animals kill to survive. Only we humans hurt for hurt's sake. That's what makes us human.
Yidel, clearly in pain, carefully climbs down from the table and with the help of a makeshift crutch, hobbles to the center of the room. He tries to lift the makeshift bag that is filled with earth. It's heavy.
I think that it was Choni Kushner's idea, but I'm not sure. Choni was a tough guy. He would say things like, "Not like sheep. I'm not going like a sheep. Bah, bah. They're not going to take me without a fight, not like the others. I'm getting out of here." Of course, Shmulek disagreed. Shmulek opposed any resistance. Shmulek was on the Judenrat, the Jewish council. On the one hand, his job was to look after his fellow Jews as best as he could. On the other, it was to make sure that the production quotas were met. In other words, to appease the Germans. When these two hands were in agreement, Shmulek was happy. When they weren't, members of the Judenrat tended not to last very long. Escape? Where to? The forests? To those Bielski hoodlums? They don't stand a chance. The Germans are going to wipe them out. And how do you propose leaving here? Walking through the main gate? Who do you think you are, Moses? Our only chance of survival is to do what they ask. Meet the quotas. Work. We're useful to them. Their army needs us. The people of this town need us. Look how they queue up outside to get their things fixed. We're their tailors. They're shoemakers. They're quality carpenters. They're silversmiths. They need us. Choni called Shmulek an idiot for thinking that the Germans were going to keep us alive. The only good Jew is a dead Jew. And even then he's no good. Then Choni said something that I didn't understand, or that I didn't want to understand. He said that the Germans were transporting all the Jews of the world to large camps in Western Poland, gassing them in large gas chambers and then burning their bodies, that thousands and thousands, maybe millions, had already gone up in smoke. What was he talking about? When I heard Choni say that, I was sure that he was the idiot. Look, the Russians are coming. I've heard that gossip about the West, but I've heard the news from the East. It will be over soon. We just have to hold out for a few more months. We just have to.
He looks out of the window, scared.
Connie's reply really scared me. Months? Are you crazy? It'll take the Red Army at least another year to get here, and by then, Jews will be history. Shmulek, it's over. 1,000 years and poof! Gone! The only question is whether we die as humans or as animals. It was then that Shmulek said the most profound thing, probably in his entire life. Where it came from, I don't know. I'm not even sure that he knew. He wasn't a Torah scholar or anything like that. He was just clumsy, annoying Shmulek. Even now, even after all those years, it still makes me shudder, like a dead man or dead community walking over my grave. We should have left a long time ago when we could. There was nothing to stop us. We should have left this godforsaken land and gone back home. It's all repeating itself. Egypt, Mitzrayim, all over again. You think I'm crazy, don't you? Well, listen. How many Jews came out of Egypt, eh? When we came out of Egypt, you remember? How many came out? It says there were 600,000, but that was only the men, those above 20. What about the women, eh? What about the women and the children? So let's say there were an equal number of women to men. That's another 600,000. And let's say there were about half that number of children. So how many altogether? 1.5 million, approximately. Then he quoted the Midrash, the one that plays on the Hebrew word chamushim from the verse, now the Israelites went up armed, chamushim, out of the land of Egypt. The rabbis pun the word chamushim with chamushit, meaning 1/5. He went on, listen, and listen carefully. Only 1/5 of the Israelites left Egypt. The rest chose to stay. So how many Israelites were there altogether in Egypt? Come on, how many? 5 times 1.5 million equals 7.5 million. 7.5 million Israelites lived in Egypt before the Exodus. And how many stayed behind, eh? It's not difficult. 7.5 million minus 1.5 million equals, well, 6 million. 6 million Jews stayed behind in Egypt and were never heard of again. And then came the punch. And you know what? This time, we're that 6 million. Us! You know why? Because we should have left here a long time ago, but we chose to stay. And now, you know what happened to the 6 million, and now you know what will happen to us.
Scene 3.
Do you know how much earth comes out of a hole? A lot. A huge amount. Humongous. And we had to get rid of it. All of it. Hide it, make it disappear without anyone noticing. Someone had the bright idea of sewing our blankets into bags. Winter was over. Spring was here. Who needed blankets? By next winter, we'd be dead anyway. Mama complained, of course. It's important to cover yourself when sleeping. Otherwise, you can get a chill. You know that. I was allowed to keep mine. Not because of the chill, but to hide under in case there was a search. Maybe if there was an inspection, they wouldn't see me on the top bunk covered with a blanket. But they never had inspections. No clean German or even Latvian or Ukrainian would dare come into our lice-infested, stinking, filthy, Jew-filled camp. The digging started under the bunk of the Zetlers. That is, the survivors from Zetl, a town not far from here. 150 of them. 150 out of a total Jewish population of 4,500. My cousin Laser was from there. Luckily, he managed to get out before the door closed and escape to Uzbekistan. By the way, as a total aside, do you know what the connection is between Uzbekistan and Belarus? No? They're both landlocked countries. You know what that means, don't you? Neither country has an outlet to the sea. Belarusia is surrounded by Lithuania and Latvia to the northwest, by Russia to the north and east, by Ukraine to the south, and by Poland to the west. And Uzbekistan? It's bordered by 5 countries. Kazakhstan to the north, Kyrgyzstan to the northeast, Tajikistan to the southeast, Afghanistan to the south, and Turkmenistan to the southwest. But you know what makes Uzbekistan even more special? It's one of only 2 countries that are doubly landlocked. Seriously, each of those stands are themselves landlocked. There's only one other country in the world like that. You see, before all of this happened, I wanted to be a geography and history teacher. I loved them both. I learned about every battle of Napoleon. I can still recite them all, from his first victory in North Italy in 1795 to his great triumph at Austerlitz against the 3 emperors in 1805 to his defeat at Waterloo in 1815, everything. Funny, now I think about it, the similarities between Napoleon and Hitler, Yimach Shemo, may his name be blotted out. Napoleon was defeated by Russia. Hitler, Yimach Shemo, is being defeated by Russia. Napoleon saw himself as supreme leader of a new world epoch. Same with Hitler, Yimach Shemo. It was around the Jewish question that they differed the most. Napoleon freed Jewish minds with their bodies. Hitler, may his name be blotted out, is freeing Jewish minds from their bodies. I wanted to be a teacher.
Yidel bends down, supporting himself with the crutch, and tries to lift the bag of earth. He strains, slips, and falls to the floor. He lies there panting and sobbing.
I'm useless! I can't even stand up! I can't even lift a stupid bag of dirt! Everyone else is doing something except for me! Curse this! Leave me alone! I don't need your help! I can do it on my own!
He tries to get up using the crutches, but slips again and crashes to the floor.
I'm useless! I'm just a burden on everybody. They're being so nice to me, but I can read their eyes. Better I stayed in the forest and let the cold end me. Ah! Know what you're thinking? You prefer me dead. Well, I'm sorry for being alive. It wasn't my fault the ice broke.
With renewed energy, he forces himself to his feet and clumbers to the bunk bed. He hauls himself up, crying in pain when he hits his feet against the wood. He's on the top bunk and throws down the crutches. He rummages under the blankets and pulls out a crude noose. He loops one end over a crossbeam and pulls the slip knot tight. The other end he puts around his neck and edges towards the edge of the bunk.
It wasn't my fault! The ice cracked!
Yidel is sitting on the floor. The noose is no longer visible.
My father caught me just in time. I would have done it. I would have. I thought that it was the only fair thing to do. He was so angry, he shouted at me. Papa never shouted at me. Are you crazy? What's the matter with you? After all this, you would do such a thing? And then he softened, and what he said next changed my whole life until this day. My son, my little Yidele, this is not the world we wanted to bring you into. This is not what we planned. You have seen what should never be seen. Maybe that's what the Torah means when God says, no man shall see my face and live. You should not be here. It shouldn't have been like this. I'm sorry. Listen. Listen carefully. We have a chance to live. We really do. I can't promise you anything, not now, not here. But you must promise me something. You hear? You must promise me to see this through to the end. You understand? Your wounds will heal. The pain will subside. You'll get stronger. And then we will escape. I will do everything I can to get you and Mama and Nechama out of here alive. Just don't give up. Not now. Not ever. Useless? No. You are not useless. You had bad luck. It wasn't your fault, but here, right now, you have the most important role. More than digging, more than lifting. You are our witness. You must not fail us. You must live. So I made up my mind at that moment to live, to see the nightmare through to the end. I am a witness, a participatory witness. I swore to live, to tell this tale.
Yidel gets to his feet without the help of the crutches, hobbles to the bag of dirt. He stands above the bag of earth, a little shaky, and tries to lift it. It's clearly an effort, but he manages to bring it up to his chest and then drops it. It lands with a heavy thud.
At the beginning, the earth was gotten rid of outside. The bags were taken out at night and the dirt dropped into a disused cistern, but that quickly filled. So someone came up with the bright idea of hiding it in the attic. Each room was connected to the next through the attic. Plenty of room to hide the dirt up there. All day someone was in the tunnel digging, someone else was here collecting the dirt into bags and lifting it up to the attic where someone else took it and emptied it. It never stopped. Obviously during the night, the work went faster, more hands.
He bends down again, grabs the bag, and lifts it up past his chest. And with an effort above his head, he succeeds. He does a little dance, but then his feet hurt, causing him to wince. In spite of that pain, he lifts the bag again.
They built a railway. Seriously. Tracks and a trolley that could be pulled back and forth carrying the dirt.
He pulls on a string that's lying near him, and a wooden trolley rolls across the floor. He plays with it, pulling it this way and that like a child. The string of lights come on, rather dim.
And then there was air, or rather the lack thereof. Candles wouldn't stay alight. Amazingly enough, Avram Rakovsky, an electrician by trade, managed to find a live electric cable running into the camp. He cut into it, made a switchboard, and we had lighting in the tunnel. He was so smart. Poor guy. It killed him in the end. And I hear you saying, what about air for breathing? The first 10 meters was fine, no problem. And then Scholik. Oh, I haven't yet told you about Scholik. Scholik was a second cousin, older than me. Everyone was older than me. About 18. He was born with muscles. I mean, we're all born with muscles, obviously. But what I mean is that he was born muscular, strong. Not the brightest. Definite case of brawn trumping brain. But he was a motek, a really good-hearted boy. And there was Sarah. Sarah and Scholik. Scholik and Sarah. Oh, they were a couple from as close to birth as you can get. They were two peas in a pod, a match made in heaven, whatever. They adored each other. Were rarely apart. I used to watch them as they flirted with each other. I watched when they walked together how their shoulders would touch and touch again, how their fingers would brush against each other's without pulling back, sort of natural, the most natural thing in the world. I watched how she would lift her head toward the sky whenever he made her laugh, which was very often, how her hair would fall back like a waterfall and her face would shine with happiness. Sarah loved to trace the veins on his biceps. She was so proud of her man. Poor Sarah. Poor Scholik. Scholik took to the work of digging like a badger. He didn't mind the dark. From the moment he came back from his back-breaking tasks outside the camp, he would jump in that hole and immediately dirt would start appearing. Often he would report sick and others would cover for him just so that he could dig all day and all night. He had a great desire to live with Sarah, to have children, to have a family as they had dreamed. But first he had to escape. At the beginning, the tunneling progressed rapidly, dirt flying out of the hole. Then one day, about 2 weeks into digging, it was evening. I remember that because Srolik was inside and everyone else was in the room, heaving bags of dirt into the attic. Sarah was talking about their plans for after the war. They had decided to live on a kibbutz. Srolik had a relative already living there. They would join them, work the earth, live simply, raise a family. Everyone was entranced by her vision and by her prettiness. Suddenly she started screaming. The flow of dirt had stopped. We hadn't noticed. Connie started tugging the rope. Which rope? I forgot to tell you.
He takes the rope and ties it around his ankles.
Whenever a digger went into the tunnel, a rope was tied around his feet so we could pull him out if something went wrong, or signal to him to come out, 1 pull, or not to come out, 2 pulls. It was Shmulik's idea. He said that's what they used to do to the high priest on Yom Kippur during the temple times. No one was allowed into the Holy of Holies except him on that day. So what if he died inside? What if he was struck down? How would they get him out?
Heaving on the rope.
They pulled out Srolik's body. Luckily, the tunnel wasn't yet very long. Sarah went hysterical, started beating him on the chest. Mother tried to stop her, but she was too strong.
Yidel beats his fists on the ground.
And suddenly, Srolik's body gasped, coughed, gasped and sneezed. He had fainted from lack of air. He was unhurt, apart from the bruises on his chest. But then again, she probably saved his life. This time it was my father who came up with the solution. Bellows! Bellows and piping. So while someone was in the tunnel, someone else had to pump air. Tiresome, but necessary. Could be done with the leg or by hand. Light and air and getting rid of the dirt were not the only things that we had to cope with. We were lucky. Yes, even there we had moments of luck. The earth was not sandy, but very clayish.
He takes out dirt from the bag and plays with it with his fingers.
If it would have been too sandy, this tunnel would have collapsed or flooded at the first rain. Clay soil keeps the water out and doesn't crumble. On the other hand, sandy soil is easier to dig through and lighter to carry. Clay soil is difficult to carve out and even more difficult to heave. We were blessed with a good portion of both. Nevertheless, to stop the tunnel from collapsing, we shored it up with wooden struts, like a real mine. So the traffic went in 2 directions. Dirt out, wood in. So much dirt, so much wood. The carpenters in the workshops worked overtime, stripping walls, ceilings, beds. They over-ordered wood from the Germans. We were lucky. I keep using that word. What does it mean? Luck in our circumstances. One of the carpenters, a guy called Moshe Nignievsky, was a master craftsman, and Commandant Reuter, may his name be blotted out, ordered him to make replicas of Hitler's, may his name be blotted out, furniture. Every once in a while, he would give him a photograph of another item to copy. A desk, a bed, a cabinet, a clothes wardrobe, and would supply him with the finest wood. Moshe was able to order more and more lumber without anyone raising an eyebrow. And so it went on, day after day. Dirt out, wood in, dirt out, wood in, dirt out, wood in.
Scene 5. Yidel is standing in the middle of the room. The bag of dirt is between his feet. He's holding on to one of the crutches. He releases the crutch that crashes to the floor. He looks at the bag, then crouches down, grabs the sides, and like a weightlifter, slowly lifts it up. He is clearly straining and wobbling. He raises it above his knees, above his waist. He's clearly struggling. He shifts his hands so that they are underneath and then continues to strain, pushing the bag up to his chest. He seems to be tottering, his legs finding balance. He's trying with all his might. The bag is at the level of his neck and then his face. All his body is trembling with effort. Finally, with one great effort, he snaps it above his head, offering it to the imaginary takers in the attic. He smiles, pleased with himself, parades it around proudly until he seems to lose balance and the bag crashes to the floor.
When the escape committee was formed and the work started, Choni gave orders that we must maintain strict secrecy, which was very difficult considering how many people were involved and the continual to and fro of dirt and wood, but he put special emphasis on Dr. Schwartz. Under no conditions, he said, must Dr. Schwartz be in on our plans. Nobody knew who he was or where he came from, certainly not from anywhere near here. He claimed that he was from Linz in Austria, and together with 6,000 others from the Reich, transported to Minsk to die in the ghetto. Apparently it was an example of Aryan humor, bringing the most refined Jews of the West to die with the most barbaric Jews of the East. Ha fucking ha.
He takes a crumbled piece of paper out of his pocket and smooths it out. There is a large swastika printed on it. From his pocket, he produces a pair of reading glasses.
Reich Secret Document, December 16th, 1941, from Wilhelm Kuber, Generalkommissar from Weißrutenlinnen. My dear Heinrich, I wish to ask you personally for an official directive for the conduct of the civilian administration towards the Jews deported from Germany to Belarusia. Among these Jews are men who fought on the front and have the Iron Cross, first and second class, war invalids, half Aryans, even three-quarter Aryans. Up to now, only 6,000 to 7,000 Jews have arrived of the 25,000 who were expected. I am certainly a tough man and willing to help solve the Jewish question, but people who come from our own cultural sphere are just not the same as the brutish hordes from the east. Is the slaughter to be carried out by the Lithuanians and Letts or by us Germans? I couldn't do it. I beg you to give clear directives in this matter with due considerations for the good name of our Reich and our party, in order that the necessary action can be taken in the most humane manner. With heartfelt greetings, Heil Hitler, yours, Wilhelm Kuber. Wilhelm Kuber. Wilhelm Kuber. Let me tell you about Wilhelm Kuber. At 1:20 a.m. on 22nd of September 1943, Wilhelm Kuber was assassinated in his Minsk apartment by a time bomb hidden in his mattress. It was called Operation Blow Up. The bomb was placed by a Soviet partisan, Yelena Mazanik, a Belarusian woman who was hired as a maid and was convinced to assassinate him.
Yidel folds the letter, puts it back into his pocket. He removes his glasses and then lifts up the bag and with some effort holds it above his head in triumph. He puts it down, panting from the effort.
Choni caught Schwartz peering in through the window. It was too late. He had seen everything. Choni pulled him into the room, accused him of being a Moise, an informer. Was ist das? A tunnel? You want to escape, yeah? Come, I will help you. Lights! You have lights! And air bellows! Ingenious! What was I doing? Nothing, just taking a walk. I've never been on this side of the camp before. Mäuse? Was ist ein Mäuse? Spitzel? Ein Spitzel? Nein, ich bin kein Spitzel.
Yidel, as Dr. Schwartz looks around pleadingly, searching for a sympathetic face. He spots one in the audience.
Ich bin ein Jude aus Linz. A Jew from Linz! Linz! You've never heard of Linz? Ignoramuses. All of you! Linz is the most beautiful city on the Danube. You've heard of the Danube, yeah? In Upper Austria. Linz in Upper Austria has a very famous university. Ludwig Wittgenstein taught there. Mein Gott! Wittgenstein! The greatest modern philosopher! And I am a doctor of philosophy, of mathematics. Want to hear something funny? Funny ha-ha or funny peculiar? Ha-ha. Funny peculiar. I also studied at the Realschule. Der Führer also studied there. Hey, stop! I am not a Mäuse! I'm not! It was a joke! Okay! Calm down! I was only saying that we went to the same school, not that we were friends. God, you people! What am I doing here? Kristallnacht. Which Nacht? Mein Gott. Kristallnacht, November 9th, 1938. Destruction of all Jewish property. Burning of the synagogues in Austria and Germany. Ja, verstanden? You are Jews, aren't you? You know what happened. Oh, good. Just not by that name. Yeah. I was at the university teaching. I was still allowed because I'm considered a Mischlinge, half-breed. Too much Jewish, not enough Aryan. Me, Jewish? I've never been Jewish in my life. My students. There was no warning. In the middle of my class, my best student suddenly stood up, unfurled a Nazi flag. The others attacked me, slapped me, kicked me, spat on me. They threw me down the stairs. They laughed me out of the university. Me, their professor! I went home. There was a swastika painted on the door and the windows smashed. My wife had gone, taken our 2 children with her. She was 100% Aryan. Next day, the Gestapo arrested me. I was sent to Dachau, but later released. I returned to Linz. No work, no family, no friends. I managed to get a job as a bookkeeper. Me, a professor of philosophy, a bookkeeper. In October 1939, after Poland's defeat, I was arrested again. This time I was sent to hell. Nisko. It was hell on earth. I was there for 2 years. You have no idea. Well, maybe you do. It was November, yeah? November 41. Those that were still alive were stuffed into train wagons built for cattle. After 5 days we arrived in Minsk. So many died, dead on arrival. They built a special ghetto for Westerners, Sonderghetto. There were Jews from Frankfurt, Vienna, Hamburg, from all over. Poets, writers, bankers, singers, musicians, wealthy, poor. It was terrible. Terrible. What was my job? In the ghetto? Bookkeeping. Bookkeeping what exactly? I had to! They made me. They threatened to shoot me. I had no choice. I'm not even Jewish! But you don't understand! I'm not even Jewish! Schrolik, put him out! Put him out! Put him out! He's stuck! Pull out! Oh my God, pull! What's happening? There's a tractor in the field. It's harvesting the wheat. The tunnel will collapse. Schrolik, get him out! Get him out! Schrolik! It's okay, you're safe. You're safe, Schrolik! During the commotion, Dr. Schwartz tries to escape, but is prevented. Hilfe! Hilfe! Tunnel! Tunnel! The Mäuser! He tried to escape! Kill him! Kill him! Dr. Schwartz used the commotion to make a run for the door. Aunt Leia hit him over the head with the iron spade before he managed to open it. Had anyone heard him? Were we about to get raided? We waited in silence. If the guards came in now, we'd be caught red-handed. Luckily, the noise of the tractor in the field covered up his shouting. Everyone was in the room. Schmulik was the prosecutor. Dr. Schwartz is sitting in the chair, hands tied. Dr. Schwartz, you've been accused of being a Mäuser, an informer. This is the worst sin a Jew can do against a fellow Jew. Maimonides said, whoever hands over a Jew to the heathen has no part in the next world. It is permitted to kill a Mäuser wherever he is. It is even permitted to kill him before he has handed over a fellow Jew. I'm not Jewish! I told you! I hate Jews! I've always hated Jews! Then you are a Rodef, one who comes to kill and must be treated in the same way. If you kill me, they'll come looking! They'll tear this place apart! They'll find your pathetic tunnel! They'll kill you all! You have a point, although I doubt that the bastards give a shit about you or us. To them, you're just another stinking Jew. I'm not a Jew! He pulls his hand from the rope, grabs the corner of the yellow star that's sewn onto his jacket and rips it off, throwing it onto the floor. He spits on it. Let me go! Dr. Schwartz. Yeah. Why would you do it? Why would you betray us? What did they promise you? Money? Nein. Not money. Something even money cannot buy. Far more precious. You see, they promised to change my status from Mischlinge to full Aryan. Then the curse would be lifted and I would be free. I would be able to rejoin my wife and my children. I would have my life back. Dr. Schwartz, from the city of Linz, this Beit Din has found you guilty of the crime of Moise against the Jewish people in general and the communities of Novorodok, Zetel, Korolitz and Lubst and all those present in this camp in particular. For such a crime, there is only one punishment possible: death. Death by strangulation. Srolik!
Srolik takes the rope off his hands and wraps it around Dr. Schwartz's neck and begins to pull. His legs start kicking desperately.
I'm not a Jew!
Scene 7. Yidel is sitting on his bed, writing in an exercise book.
What is the world coming to? The Germans are killing Jews, and we kill the Jew. Does that make us like the Germans? It's so confusing. Dr. Schwartz's body was dumped in the septic pit and covered with dirt from our tunnel. If it was funny, I would laugh. I hope that his curse has now been lifted. The loss of the wheat field was a terrible setback. Our cover was gone, just like that. The date of the escape has been put off. We'll have to dig another 100 meters to the other side of a hill, so the guards in the search tower won't be able to spot us. In spite of that, our spirits are high. Maybe we'll get out of here alive after all. But I must confess, I am beyond the point of hunger. I don't know where our strength comes from. Maybe from God. But if from God, then why doesn't he just free us? Or kill us? Why this drawn-out agony? My feet are healing, but still the bugs come every night to enjoy a good meal. The itching drives me crazy. Last night I begged my father to find some kerosene and pour it on the bandages. The stinging hurt like crazy, but not as bad as the itching. Now the bugs will also know the pangs of hunger.
He closes the notebook, hides it under his blanket, climbs down. He is more agile, but still limping. He lifts the bag above his head and then places it down between his feet. He repeats the action.
Srolik was in the tunnel, and Sarah was working the bellows when it happened. We had just taken a directional reading. They let me do it this time.
He climbs up onto the top of the bunk.
The digger would push a thin metal stick through the earth, and a spotter looking through a gap in the roof tiles would be able to tell if the tunnel was going in the right direction, staying at the right depth.
He stands and stretches himself.
I see it! I see it! The stick is in line with the tree, and only one white stripe is showing. All's well! Suddenly, Shmulik burst into the room. They're calling for all women to the yard. They brought loaves of bread. They want to hand them out. Sarah, you go too. I'll take over the pump. I saw the bread. A truck full of black bread and sacks of vegetables. Commandant Reuter said it. I heard him. He said he wants to increase production. The Reich needs our boots and gloves. Just as I told you. Who's an idiot now, eh? They'll feed us more and in return we'll produce more.
Shouting is heard. Dogs barking. Women screaming.
I can see the trucks, 3 of them. They're filled with sacks of food. We're saved. We're saved. I can see soldiers in the trucks, lots of them. They're throwing the bread onto the road. They're laughing. The women are scrambling for the pieces of bread. Wait. Something's wrong. I don't know. Something's wrong. They're looking at the bread. It looks like stale bread, rotten bread. I can see them. I can see the women. They don't know what's happening. The guards have surrounded them. Something's wrong. There's Reuter. Oh my God, he's making a selection. He's pointing at them. I see them. There's Leah, Fania, Devorah, Nechama. Where's Sarah? At that moment, Srolik crawled crawled out of the tunnel. He was gasping for air. Shmulik had stopped pumping. He looked around, looking for Sarah. I can't see her. She's there she is. She's Reuter. He's pointing at her. She's walking towards the truck. Choni and the others tried to stop him, but he was too strong, too wild. He kept screaming, Sarah! Sarah! I see. Sarah's on the truck there. There's Scholik. He's running. They've closed the gate. Sarah's seen him. She's jumped down. She's running towards him from the other side of the gate. Scholik has pushed down a guard and he's climbing the gate. No! Scholik! Sarah!
Scene 8. Yidel is sitting on the floor. He opens his diary and reads.
The bees are busy as usual collecting pollen from the trees and flowers. They fly back to their hives and turn the pollen into honey. Little do they know that they are actually serving another function altogether, pollinating the trees and flowers. The farmer benefits from both. He gets the fruit and he gets the honey. We are working harder than the bees and we are getting nothing except holes in our stomachs from the hunger and the holes in our bodies from the bastards' bullets. The tunnel is the only thing I think about, the tunnel. Last night I dreamt about the tunnel. I was crawling inside a black hole, crawling as fast as I could to get out, but it never ended. The blackness never ended. I miss Srolik. I miss Sarah.
Yidel gets up and starts lifting the bag off the floor and above his head. He totters, then lets it drop. He bends down over it. He weeps. After a while, he wipes his face on his sleeve and looks at the audience.
I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I can go on with this. It's getting too heavy for me. Too heavy.
He smiles whimsically at the pun.
But I promise to see it through to the end. It gets worse before it gets better. At least for some of us. For others, it just gets worse. Not sure about you, though. Do you have what it takes to see this through to the end?
He gets to his feet and lifts the bag again above his head.
Fania was beautiful. She was also very smart. She came from Zhetel, a town not far from Novorodok, one of the few survivors. She's only alive because she speaks German. Ironic, isn't it? Got a gift for languages, she does. And chutzpah. Plenty of chutzpah. When Reuter was preparing for the selection in Zhetel, he called for a secretary to take notes. Fania simply got up from the hundreds of terrified Jews lying on the ground and walked to his side. I'm here, she said, just like that. She told me that she was actually shaking like a leaf, but what could he have done? Shot her? She now works for him as a translator. Fania took a liking to me. Or perhaps I took a liking to Fania. She's older than I, but that doesn't seem to matter here. She knows a lot about history and geography, but not as much as me. I showed her my diary and she said that I had the writer's gift. I'm not sure what that means, but any compliment coming from her makes me feel really good. Nechama likes her too, but sometimes I think that Nechama is a bit jealous of the attention I'm giving Fania. Fania also took over the role of changing my bandages. For that, I'm sure Nechama is relieved. What I like most about Fania is the way she touches me, almost unconsciously when she's talking to make a point. She would touch my arm, or my hand, or my knee, or if she really wanted to make sure that I was listening, she would touch my cheek. When she did that, I didn't hear a word that she was saying. Did you know that Sarah was pregnant? I'm sure she was. I heard her vomiting the other morning. Oh, didn't you know? That's one of the sure signs. Vomiting. No. Oh, silly boy, not every time a woman vomits she's pregnant, but every time she's pregnant she vomits. Why? I don't know. That's just the way it is. Poor Sarah. You know how a woman gets pregnant, don't you? No or yes? How? You see that tree over there? Yes, the one with the big stork nest on the top, yes? Well, it's springtime, isn't it? So a stork must have brought her a baby. A Jewish stork brought Sarah a Jewish baby. Just imagine. And how did the baby get into her stomach? I've always wondered about that. Did the stork put her long neck down her throat and drop it there, or up her? You know what? I wonder what that feels like, having a stork's head going up. Yiddle, my lovely boy, do you think I'll find a man in the forest, a handsome, strong partisan, a Jew with a gun, someone to protect me? You'll protect me. Oh yes, of course you'll protect me. Do you think they make weddings there? It would be nice to have a white dress. I've always imagined myself in a white dress on my wedding day. Do you think they would have a rabbi there who would marry us? I hope they have a rabbi there. And a mikveh, going under the water and coming out clean, reborn, pure for my beloved husband. Do you think there will be somewhere to go? You know, to be on our own, on our wedding night, you know, far away from everyone else, somewhere quiet, next to a stream perhaps. I love the sound of water gurgling. It's so romantic. I just want it to be. I sometimes wonder whether Fanya was a prophet. I don't mean a prophet like Isaiah, the prophet, you know, but like when we say something without realizing it and then it happens. Is that prophecy or just coincidence? Are future events shaped by our words, by our prayers, or do they simply unfold regardless? Serious philosophical questions. Maybe it doesn't matter, but still it was strange. Sometimes I wonder if she hadn't said anything, whether it wouldn't have happened, but that they would still be alive. But that's silly, isn't it? Isn't it? Tell me something. How many of us are left here? The last count was 525. I know it's going down daily, so let's say 500. Well, I've been doing some calculations. How far is it to the ridge where the tunnel exit will be? 200 meters, more or less, right? Well, let's say that it will take each person 60 seconds to crawl through that tunnel and out. Oh, that's too fast. Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to crawl from here to the end. Then for 500 people to escape, it will take 1,000 minutes, which is 16 hours. 16 hours, that's more than half a day. How will we all get out before sunrise? You see, it's impossible. Half of us will be getting out in broad daylight. We'll be seen by the guards. Target practice will never make it. Shmulek is right. This is a crazy idea. Anybody left behind will be killed. How will they decide the order of the escape? Do you know? No? Do you know? I'm from Jetl. I'm not one of you. I'm not a Novorodoka. I'm a Jetler. I'll be put at the end. I'll be getting out in the middle of the day. What will I say? Just going shopping. Please don't shoot. And how will I run? In the middle of the day, who runs? This is crazy. Crazy. Suicide. I should have stayed with Mama and Papa. I did tell you that her strong points were languages and romantic novels, didn't I? But even though her maths were totally wrong, she'd still said it. I know it's not her fault, but still. Anyway, I'll spare you the agonies of what followed. As I said, I don't have the strength for it, and I know you probably don't either. The siren suddenly started wailing, and so did we. Everyone left the barracks except me. I sat alone, the last little yid in the world. Dogs barking, voices barking, a few screams, and then it went silent. I heard the main gates creak on their hinges. I heard the silence of death approaching. From far away, but not too far, there came the sounds of machine guns firing, every bullet ripping through the fabric of life, until all that remained was in tatters. Violence against non-violence. Inhumanity against humanity.
He takes up his diary, thumbs to the last entry and reads.
This is the end. Everyone is gone. The tunnel will never be used. All that work for nothing. No one will ever know. Maybe in the future someone will dig in that field and they will find a hole underground. Maybe they will discover that it's not a hole but a tunnel held up by bits of wood, and they will puzzle over this. What is a tunnel doing here? Who dug it? And where did they get the wood? Where did they put the dirt? They will never know. The forest will live forever, but we will be gone. This is the last entry in my diary. I am Yidel Yehuda Kagan, son of Jacob and Devorah. I am 14 years old. I no longer have my toes. If anyone should find this notebook, please light a candle in our memory. My sweet, sweet sister Nechama, gone. My loving mother Devorah, gone. My headstrong Aunt Leah, gone. My friends, gone. So many gone. I thought I was the last one left alive. I thought that if this time I used my noose, there would be no one to catch me. But I promised. I promised to see this out to the end. So if I can stay alive, I will. My father was not selected to die. Nor Choni, nor the other members of the escape committee. Shmulik was still alive. We were down to 230. Half gone. The bastards can keep reducing our numbers by half and then by half again, but Zeno's paradox doesn't work here. Eventually there will be no one left. Besides, I don't think that the Germans are interested in such philosophical conundrums. They will kill one half and then the other. Simple. And what of Fanya? She reappeared a few hours later. I went out with you all. Just before I reached the square, the German guard, Hans, the one who always gives me just a little bit extra to eat, grabbed my arm and told me to hide. I didn't know where to hide. He pointed to a broken window in the basement of the courthouse. He pointed his gun at me and shouted, "Schnell, schnell," and made me run towards the window like I was running to join the others. When I got there, I just dived in. He stood blocking anyone from seeing me. It was an old workshop filled with junk. I hid there in a corner with my hands over my ears. Oh my God. The others.
A screen projects the photos of Yidel's mother, sister, aunt, and others.
Yiskadal, Yiskadash, Shemei Rabbi, Be'elma, Divrach, Yerusei, B'yamlach, Machusei, B'chayechon, U'v'yomechon, U'v'chayei, D'chol Beis Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'v'izman, Koriv, V'imru, Omein.
Scene 9. Yidel is lifting the bag up above his head, lowers it to the floor and repeats the action, easily now. Lowers it to the floor and repeats the action.
The most frustrating thing is that life goes on like normal. like Mama and Sis, will come in at any moment and we would be a family again, and we would go outside and breathe in the fresh air and then walk up the hill to our lovely house with all my books, and I would get ready to go to school and tease Sis until she screamed. How does this happen? How do we go on and not just kill ourselves from grief? How can we ever laugh again? How can we continue with normal conversations about the weather, about my feet, about escaping, about living? Somehow I suppose our minds have a way of keeping the pain away, of blocking it out just long enough that we can pretend that everything is normal. I miss Mama and Sis. Papa did his best, but he was in such pain. He would smile, but it would be an empty smile. He went through the motions. Every day he would bring me half of his soup, which itself was diluted by half. The others would joke that if only the Germans knew how much they were helping us escape by slimming us down, they would double our portions and add potatoes and real meat. Papa no longer laughed at this humor. He was dying on the inside. I started worrying about him. And then came Shmulik. Yankel, I need to speak to you alone, please, over there in the corner. I've seen a list. No, not another selection, a transfer. They're demanding 20 men for a work detachment. Koldichevo. Yes, Koldichev. Death sentence. And this isn't? Look, Yankel, there's no way you're going to escape. And even if you do get through that tunnel, what about the guards, the searchlights, the machine guns, the dogs? You'll never make it to the forest before daybreak, not with Yiddle. He'll slow you down. And even if you make it to the forest, the Polacks will get you before you find the Bielskis and their band of Jewish partisans. I'm giving you a chance. You have a much better chance of escaping from Koldichevo. You're not leaving? Yankel, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. Your name is on the list. It's done. In the yard, in 1 hour. And think yourself lucky, that's more time than I had to say goodbye to my 2 sons. I'm sorry, Yankel, but one day you'll thank me for this. But he didn't. That was the last I heard of my father. He blessed me before he left, charged me again with the responsibility of being a witness and keeping the memories of so many alive. He was shrinking before my eyes, my father disappearing. He took his jacket and cap, hugged everyone goodbye, and left. Gone. Poor Papa.
Scene 10. Yiddle is sitting on a bag of dirt. He's wrapping his feet in torn blankets.
It's finished! The tunnel, it's finished! We're ready to leave! Sunday night, chances are the guards will be drunk as usual. There's also a storm brewing. Someone pointed out that it will be almost new moon. Not quite, but almost. They asked why we weren't waiting a couple more days until the moon will be completely dark. We'll need all the help we can get. Someone else laughed at him. Don't you know that it'll be Rosh Hashanah? Jews don't escape on such a holy day. With God's help, in 4 days' time, we'll be in the forest with the Bielskis in Little Jerusalem, and we'll hear the sound of the shofar, the sound of freedom, the sound of war against the enemies of God, the sound of revenge for the blood of our families. That's what he said. I'll just be glad to get out of here. We were given numbers and our names were written on a list.
The archival lists are projected on screens around the stage. Yiddle is holding a piece of paper with a number on it.
I got 95. Fania got 32. 95. 32. 95. 90. That's about halfway. What's the chances that the escape won't be detected by then? 95! Such a boring number, not even a prime number. 97, now that's a number. Or 91. No, 91's not a prime number, but 95? I pointed out to Fania that her number was very special. 32. Gematria Lamed Bet, Lev, Hebrew for heart. She liked that so much that she gave me a kiss on the cheek. I hope that she didn't pick up any of my lice. Then Choni came up to me and, a little embarrassed, told me that they had made a mistake. I wasn't 95. He took my number and added a 1. I was 195. I was going to be one of the last out. Diggers first, fighters last, and anyone who might get stuck just before them. Nothing must slow the passage through the tunnel. He told me that my father would be proud of me and good luck and see you in the forest and 195? Also not a prime number. Why not 191 or 193 or 197 or even 199? Yes, that's a luckier number than a stupid 195. Who's got 199? I'll swap you 195. And then Shmulik surprised us all. I'm not going through that tunnel. I can't. It's not because of your father or because of my opposition to this escape. I'm sorry for both. I really, really am. It's Rosh Hashanah next week. I ask for your forgiveness. It's that I have claustrophobia. I'll freeze with fright in there. I can't. I'll block it for you all. I know if they find me here, they'll kill me. So I've made a space for myself behind one of the walls. I have some food and water stored there. I'll be able to survive 2, maybe 3 days. After that, I'll try and get out on my own somehow. Maybe by then they will have abandoned this place and I can walk out through the front gates. Wouldn't that be something? In any case, I'll work the pump until the last one of you is out, and then I'll turn off the light and go into my hiding place. Good luck to you all. I don't know what took more courage, going through the tunnel or staying behind. Shmulik wasn't alone. A number of others decided to try their luck and stay behind. The fact is that after 3 days they did exactly what he said. They walked out the front gate. It was left open after the Germans removed the heavy equipment and abandoned the camp. No more Jews left to enslave. If I would have known, I wouldn't have bothered with all that crawling, and my wounds would not have reopened. But who knew?
Lightning and a roll of thunder, sounds of wind and heavy rain. Something metallic smashing again and again and again. Yidel is sitting on the floor holding up his number. He's watching as others are passing in front of him.
I waved goodbye to Fania as she disappeared into the ground. She blew me a kiss. Would I ever see her again? Would I make it to the forest? Would I find my cousin Burl? Would Papa be there waiting for me? I have a plan, a very smart plan. I'm not going to run straight for the forests. Everyone else is going to be running as fast as they can, not to get caught before the first light, either across the fields or along the Karalich Road. It's about 20 miles. I'll never make it, not with these feet, not without my toes, not without boots. So I'm going to go in the other direction. Left, not right. Go around the back of the town. I'll find a place to sleep, wait until tomorrow night, and then start for the forest at my own pace. The Germans will never think of looking in that direction. They'll be too busy trying to catch those running in a straight line. Shit! What's happening? What's happening? Are they killing us one by one as we come out? Oh God! Almost my turn. I don't want to do this. This is suicide. I want to stay. Please let me stay. The lights! They left the lights on in the tunnel. I'll be blinded in the dark. I won't know which way to run. Good luck. Good luck. 195. My turn.
Yidel starts to crawl across the stage, disappearing into the shadows.
I made it. Just as planned. My luck held out. I circled the town in the opposite direction, waited a couple of nights and headed for the forests. Deep inside, when I began to fear that I would be lost forever, I heard a horse and cart approaching. I hid by the path. If it were the Poles, then I would surely be killed. But then I heard voices singing in Yiddish. They were Jews. They'd heard of the escape. They were looking for us. They took me to the Bielski camp. My cousin Burl was there. What a moment of joy to see him again. And Fanya, and so many of the others. Honey didn't make it. 70 others were also killed. Some were so confused by the chaos they started running back towards the camp. Some made it to the forest but were killed by the Polacks. And then I saw him. He was sitting atop a white horse with a rifle. Yes, a Jew with a rifle. It wasn't my father. It was our savior, Tuvia Bielski. Day after day, I woke in the hope of seeing Papa again, but he never showed up. After the liberation in June 1944, I returned to my beloved town, but it was now bereft of any joy. Its soul was missing. All the Jews had been murdered except those who had made it to the partisans. All the synagogues were destroyed except the Cold Synagogue. It was built from bricks and had been converted into a stable. Only the old cemetery was still there, untouched. I searched for my father. I sought out anyone who had survived Koldichevo. Survived Koldichevo. Very few returned from that cursed place. No one had any news about my father. Many years later, many years of futile searching, I met a man who remembered my papa. He told me that a group of prisoners had escaped together. About 10 of them, part of a work detachment, had made a run for the forests. At a certain point, my papa complained of pains in his chest and needed to rest. He urged the others to keep running, that he would catch up with them. They agreed on a rendezvous point. They left my papa with a pistol, just in case. They waited. He never showed up. This man told me that he went back to look for him. He found Papa at the same place that they had left him, lying dead on the ground. The pistol was nowhere to be found. I am Yuda, son of Yaakov and Devorah, from the town of Navaradok, and I am here, fulfilling my vow.